I think it's a great story to spend some of your vacation time on. What a way to hit 2021. You're going to be so better informed if you have this as your kind of personal Bible online about the future of clean energy in the US. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Festivus to everybody, to the rest of us. Today is December 26th, and I am Eric Planey.
I am Lucas Pico. How are you?
How are you? Together, we are the festive Pirates of Clean Tech.
Yar. Yar, ho, ho, ho.
We decided, this is our wrap up to season 2. We're going to make it a little bit extra special. So we decided to go with the ugly sweater contest. Lucas, man, looks like yours is like the funeral ugly holiday contest.
Oh, yeah. The Kanye dancing holiday sweater. Yeah.
Because nothing says holiday like Kanye.
Yeah.
You know what? We'll probably get sued by the Kardashian family or something for
probably. Well, this was a very special gift from a friend of mine at a local utility I will not mention, but it's very good times.
So ironically, mine is a fake Olympic sweater from 72 San Moritz. You can actually look at the logo. The logo cracks me up because it's a fake Olympic. It's like Audi +1 on Olympic. But I bought this for myself, but I was with a friend who is in the utility industry in Philadelphia when I bought it. And ironically, we may be mentioning him in one of our articles today.
Oh, Jack. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So, well, I hope everyone had a great Christmas and great Hanukkah. Some people probably have some holiday left in them. And I'm on vacation next week, so I'm looking forward to just some R&R and some catching up on some stories and maybe on my car project, which I do nothing with.
Yeah, we were a little late this week because I was up skiing all week, so apologies about that.
Yeah, and we finally have a guest. We haven't had a guest in a couple weeks, so here's our guest, Mr. Snowman. He was made for my holiday work party. He is made of recycled air fresheners and K-cups. So if you guys are bored, go in your recycle bin and make some snowmen. That's what we do.
No, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, anyways, this is weird. We're filming kind of mid-afternoon, but it's just right around the right time to have a holiday brew. So I'm wrapping up our season 2 with an Angry Orchard pear cider because, it is all about partridge and a pear tree. So I might as well have a pear cider.
Oh, how witty. And I'm still on the Weyerbacher, the Merry Monks. It's just, I'm obsessed currently. So
Merry Monks. I mean, sounds like Sound of Music.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through our stories pretty quick, although we have a couple really interesting ones. And then we're going to have some guest videos at the end of our session from some of our season 1 and season 2 visitors. So just kind of wishing holiday greetings and telling us what their main topic or main key points in 2020 were, and then what they look forward to in 2021. And I think Lucas and I will have some comment as well.
Yeah, so it should be very cool.
Awesome. So should we get right into it?
Yeah, let's get right into it here.
I'm happy to say Ed Crooks, who was the energy writer for many a year at the Financial Times, has moved on to Vice Chair of the Americas of Wood Mackenzie, the fantastic consultancy that does a lot of work in global energy policy. Ed one time interviewed me, funny story, for a story about the fracking boom in Northeast Ohio. And I was telling him about all the farmers who are taking all the proceeds from their land leases and buying new farm equipment, and how a side benefit is going to be more efficient farming practices because people are replacing their 30-year-old John Deeres. And he started asking farmers that question, and he found out that was happening. So I was happy about that. That being said, Wood Mac did a great article here, 10 predictions for energy in 2021. Now, Wood Mackenzie covers everything. They cover fossil fuels and they cover renewables. So if you want to go on woodmac.com from December 18th, Ed Crooks, great story. We're just going to go really quick through this because I recommend anyone who is in the energy industry to make sure you skim through this yourself. Obviously, we're talking about what a year has been in 2020 and what that could lead to for 21, including change in political environment in the U.S. and elsewhere. Number one, strong oil demand growth will lift prices. I think strong is probably a relative term, but definitely strong relative to 2020. Number two, upstream oil and gas sector will spend another year in the doldrums, even as prices rise. That doesn't surprise me. I think there's a lot of capacity out there, especially in North America, especially in the shale patch. I think they've done a good job over the years taking costs out, but probably some room to grow. So it's still not going to be robust for the oil and gas industry. And certainly peak demand is going to have something to do with that, in my opinion. Number three, oil and gas diversification to low carbon energy will accelerate. This is something that Lucas and I have been honing on for a couple of years now, a couple of seasons on Pirates. The majors are needed in order for us to transition to a low carbon environment. And if they don't come along with us, then it's just going to be harder and harder to get to where we need to be by 2050. So I think that's going to be a trend we will see. Number four, along with it, and more companies will set goals for cutting emissions. I think you're going to see, ESG, CSR, and the EU, UK, and maybe even the US through kind of the big four accounting firms taking on a lot more accountability for companies in order to show that they are truly reducing carbon emissions and becoming greener. Number five, there will be a blockbuster deal in US tight oil. I don't disagree with this. I think right now, once the economy starts picking up and people are going to kind of look and see where they are in their portfolios for the companies themselves in the oil and gas industry, you're going to see some M&A activity take place.
They say that every year, though, yeah.
Yeah, but I think this is the year, right? I mean, it wasn't going to happen in 2020. 2020 was just too much uncertainty.
Yeah.
Solar power purchase agreements will hit new lows below $13 a megawatt hour, and it just won't be in the Middle East. That doesn't surprise me. And also, we're going to talk about the extension of tax credits on the solar industry. Number seven, totally agree with this. World's electric vehicle sales will be close to 4 million, up 74% from 2020.
Wow.
I thought about that a couple of days ago when you saw the Ford commercial reenacting Christmas Vacation, Chevy Chase plugging in the lights outside, and his wife is plugging into the new Mustang Mach-E. Simply gorgeous. There is going to be greater and greater acceptance of EVs, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
I want a Mach-E. I want one of those. Those look hot.
They do look hot, but man, for me, buying a Ford as my first EV, killing me. It's killing me.
I bought a Chevy.
I know, but I'm a GM guy. I've historically been a GM guy. So
I'm a Honda guy. I mean, buying a Chevy is like weird. Anyhow.
Well, if you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Number eight, more governments will start to take equity in critical energy transition supply chains. I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out. But I do want to see more government incentives to attract investment in the supply chains, and not just the OEMs, not just the kind of developers, but actually to take a little bit to encourage some R&D in like energy storage, battery, etc.
I have a hard time.
I certainly have a vested interest in that. So put that out there.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing equity positions from the government. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That one we'll see a little bit more about. But anyways, it's interesting. Number nine, China's ban on coal imports from Australia will last all year. I guess so. I mean, that one's kind of a geopolitical one that doesn't really focus on us. Biden administration will tread carefully on climate policy. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this pregame a little bit. If Biden gets his two senators from Georgia elected, then I think there's going to be a little more runway. If not, it's going to be a little bit more pick and choose. But the symbolic gestures, as Wood Mackenzie mentions, like getting back into Paris Climate Agreement, those will take place. And obviously some of the tax credits, et cetera, will help the industry.
Yeah, we need him to be the megaphone guy. I mean, that's his job, right? So
that's his job, and I think Biden knows that. Number 11, science is showing us a brighter future. I think that's absolutely, quantum chemistry, advanced computing, AI. My opinions on AI, but quantum chemistry. I watched the Nova special last week about quantum computing. Science is going to really help us, I think, pick and choose some of the right technology. So happy to see that. And I think those were the 11, right? I don't think there are any more.
Yeah, I think so. There's a quote here. Chart of the year.
It's a good story, man. I totally recommend going forward with it. Taking a look at it. Just a great way to end 2020 by looking detailed at the whole global energy industry, including fossil fuels for 2021. And even the 11 points here, you saw the transition from talking about oil and gas to the integrated transitioning themselves, and then everything going forward on renewables. Good story. All right, that's number one. I thought this is interesting. December 23rd, Jeff St. John, we quote him a lot from Green Tech Media. What renewable energy and energy storage did and didn't get from Congress this week. Now, This is about what they call the stimulus bill in the media, which is actually a funding bill. Lucas pointed that out prior to our broadcasting. There's a threat that President Trump is going to veto it, and it has to be overridden. So this is assuming that this bill will get passed. This is what has been in there from the agreement that took place between congressional Democrats and Republicans. You know, the big thing I think that everyone just finally feels a little sense of certainty about are investment tax credits staying on for wind and solar. I think the article said the solar will still maintain a 26% tax credit by 2022. It'll go down to 2023, but there's some safe harbor language in there that goes till 2026. So people start feeling a little bit better about where they are in tax credits, because we are horrible as a country in extending tax credits for just a year or so. And then what happens as a result of that, you don't have the capital spending on manufacturing of wind turbines and solar cells. So we're importing more. It's just a lose-lose. So this pushes things out through kind of mid-decade at least, which is good. Wind also gets some benefits. Offshore wind gets a full 30% ITC credit for projects started by the end of 2025. So I think that's fantastic. We're talking, 4 full years of runway for offshore. And as Lucas and I have talked about over the course of our 2 seasons, there is a lot of offshore being contemplated, at least on the East Coast. And I suspect some projects on the West Coast will also be looked at.
Cool.
So I'm happy about that. Also, there's a tax credit, I think, for not a tax credit, but actually R&D funding across the board for $1.5 billion for solar, $625 million for wind, and $1 billion for energy storage over the next 5 years. Maybe I'd like to see those numbers up a little bit, but it's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
$1 billion for energy storage, and like the article says, they're not just focusing on battery in terms of storage. They're focusing on the whole entire supply chain and really grid integration. So I think if that's used wisely, that's going to be money that's going to pay for itself and return to the taxpayer quite quickly, from energy savings to healthcare savings as people live in cleaner environments over time. So
Right.
Good story. Totally recommend it. We have a caveat because the bill hasn't been signed into law just yet, but
Right.
I think we're going to head that way.
Yeah, I was really happy to see some of the stuff in here. There's funding for grid studies too, which I really like to see. And it's amazing that it was actually specifically mentioned in the bill. So that alone is like a big win for me.
Yep. So good story. Let's go to this one here. This is from my hometown, Youngstown Business Journal. Great publication. They do a really comprehensive job on covering certain industries. Wednesday, December 23rd. This actually, they're just doing an AP story here, but Ohio lawmakers fail to deal with tainted energy bill. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this, and of course, this is a hometown, home state issue for me. But as we all know, one of the major utilities based in Ohio that covers several states is being accused, and looks like it's pretty much what had happened, of bribing the Speaker of the Ohio House through various ways in order to ram through a bailout bill for this particular utility's coal and energy assets, coal and nuclear assets. The state legislator, before they went on holiday break, did not deal with repealing this energy bill. This energy bill, it's so funny because it not only bails out coal and nuke plants in the particular state in such an arduous way, it actually bails out a coal plant in the state of Indiana. So Ohio taxpayers are bailing out a coal plant in a different state. Shame on Ohio lawmakers for not pulling the plug and readdressing this. Is there something to be said about incentivizing and looking at nuclear plants that employ a lot of people and provide green energy? Yes. I'm not saying that they should completely repeal incentives on the nuclear plants. But what I am saying is this bill was created out of tainted incentivization to certain lawmakers who are going to jail. This thing should have been repealed on day one, and it should have been readjusted, looked at truly analytically, and addressed again. So I think this is really shameful that Ohio State legislator didn't move on this.
Yeah, I don't know. We've been kind of avoiding this issue because it's so charged, and it's such bad news that we haven't really brought it up. So yeah, I agree with you. This needs to get cleaned up. It doesn't necessarily mean that nuclear is bad. It was just some bad actors, and we need to clean this up.
Precisely right. And again, I really want to emphasize that. I'm not a fan of coal. I know a lot of coal plants provide a lot of jobs for people, So again, if things were looked at with transparency and integrity, okay, then you can put an incentive package for that particular utility, and I'm okay with that. But I don't like the fact that Ohio lawmakers went on holiday break and didn't do the job for their citizens of cleaning this up. So,
Yeah.
they get a little bit of coal in their stocking. Too bad we don't have like a little coal stocking thing.
Maybe some uranium.
Some uranium in the stocking barrel. Okay, now I actually have my last two stories are combined here, and I'm doing this purposely to go from Ohio to Colorado. And we have to give our hats off to a fellow pirate who's done one of our car reviews, Jack Eiley of Excel Energy, because he was really one of the people behind this. Two of our fellow pirates are Excel Energy employees, Jack Eiley and Kathryn Valdez. This is the Colorado Public Radio story from Christmas Day, Dan Boyce. Rebates for electric vehicle charging, part of a $110 million plan approved by Colorado regulators. There's also a Denver Post story that I have on here. Just really quick, there's $102 million that are going to be spent over 3 years to build out charging stations and incentivize homeowners to get their own charging stations. And I think the CPR story had a $500 rebate is what the plan is for homeowners. Yeah, and that's a quote from Jack. So that's going to support the cost of wiring and charger itself in the home. And that's a good amount of money. That's something that's will get you there on a decent level 2 charger for your house.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's number one. Number two, they are actually, and everything that Excel had wanted in their submission to the Public Utility Commission of Colorado didn't get approved. And the one thing that did not get approved was a full and robust rebate package for people to purchase in electric vehicles. And the reason why one PUC member said that it was just too robust of an offer, and that people shouldn't have to help pay for electric vehicles that many can afford, and that we're incentivizing people who can afford electric vehicles to get a little bit more of a rebate. So there was a bit of a cap put on the program. I think it's $5 million, and there's a cap on the price of the electric vehicle. The good news is it does apply to new vehicles and used vehicles. And I understand the intention of what the PUC members were trying to get across. And personally, if you think about this, electric vehicles have this strange conundrum right now, because buying a used electric vehicle does make a lot of sense. We've talked about it. We actually have been promoting it on our EV and hybrid charging vehicle reviews on our YouTube page. But they depreciate at a very, very fast rate. And the reason they depreciate is because legitimately battery degradation is still a serious issue. So the value of the car itself depreciates because the range of the car is depreciating because battery degradation takes place. I think going forward, automakers are addressing that. Once you address that, depreciation won't be as significant, because if the battery maintains itself, the rest of the car is going to be golden. These are cars that can last a long time. So something called TCO, total cost of ownership, will be much lower when depreciation maintains itself. And therefore, it is a fantastic value for people who are lower income, because it's not just about buying the vehicle itself, which is expensive these days, but also insurance and depreciation and cost of repair and maintenance. Giving access to electric vehicles for lower income families is going to be a very, very good thing. And this bill starts to address that. And I suspect that other states are also going to look at Colorado as a model. So I wanted to personally show shame on Ohio legislators for not even passing this tainted, repeal of a tainted bailout bill for one of their utilities on nuclear and coal. Whereas on the other hand, you've got Colorado, who's leading the charge, pun intended, on pushing an electric vehicle industry policy for the whole state that's going to benefit their citizens, and other states will follow Colorado. So hats off to our friend Jack, and hats off to Excel Energy and the PUC of Colorado for coming together, finding a little bit of compromise, and pushing it forward.
Yeah, and this is fantastic to see. I think you made a good point about low-income car buyers. If you can get them over the hump of the initial purchase price, the cost of operation is way, way lower for an EV. The filling up the tank, so to speak, it's like $4. That's way better for a low-income buyer. There's no maintenance, there's no oil changes, there's no fluids to replace, right? Except for the cooling fluids. It's just way lower cost of ownership after the initial purchase price. So getting a low-income buyer into an EV is a great choice. And then the other thing I would just say too, anecdotally, I've heard that battery degradation rates are really not that bad, just anecdotal evidence. And, Tesla's already working on a 1 million-mile battery, and we saw some 2 million-mile batteries. So these could last 10, 20, 30 years, these cars.
So I
So
agree. So
we'll
Tesla
see.
Model 3, so sorry to interrupt. Tesla Model 3 has definitely shown less degradation and the residual values are holding. But other cars, like the first generation Nissan Leaf, had serious battery degradation to the point where people in Southern California had to trade them in quickly or had to get replacements because they were starting to come home at night with their range flicking on empty, right? It was so
Yeah.
bad. So people who don't have much of a driving range on a daily commute basis and who are lower income can go out and afford a used Leaf because it does depreciate significantly. But if you do need your battery to maintain itself, it's better to find, this next generation, like the second generation Leaf, probably the Chevy Bolt, probably the new Chevy Bolt, the new battery going into it. These are going to be better and better as time goes on.
Yeah. Agreed. I think the Bolt initially had low resale values because they made the same assumption. And then when they found out that, these batteries don't degrade so poorly, now the used prices are being supported for the Bolt. So
Right.
yeah.
Again, also I think that's why plug-in electric hybrids make a lot of sense for a lot of people too, because hopefully you get the depreciation associated with an electric, but you still have the range because you have a backup gas engine.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I think it makes sense. So again, I just really want to give hats off to our friends in Colorado for being so proactive in finding a solution, and the regulators and citizens. Colorado for me is fascinating. Like when we had Kathryn on, we talked about the fact it's a purple state, but even the Republicans in Colorado look and understand, the need for sustainability and how they treat the gorgeous environment of Colorado with such reverence that they will
Yep.
do anything to take care of their environment. So hats off to them.
Yeah. This is great. Yeah, great lineup here.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think you do as well. So I'm off to you now.
Yeah, all right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, so I wanted to start with this. So this is my deep dive article for the week. So I found this great study out of Princeton University called Net Zero America. Every now and then you find one of these studies where people are like, hey, how are we really going to get to zero carbon by 2050? Let's do a full heavy study and get all the details. So Princeton University, the Andlinger Center for Energy Environment, Carbon Mitigation Initiative, the High Meadows Environmental Institute all got together. But this giant study, 345 slides. I'm not going to go through all of them because we just don't have time, but this is a really good, it's even an interim report. So maybe it's out for public comment, and there's a final coming. So I just wanted to hit some high level points from this that I thought were really cool that I hadn't seen in other studies yet. So if you want, we can start with the high level points. So here in the executive summary, this is slide 9, 6 pillars that are needed to support the transition to net zero. If you want to follow along, if you can download it, if you're on the podcast, we'll have the link in the notes below. Number 1, end use efficiency and electrification, which we've talked about on the show before, definitely critical. Clean electricity, both generation and transmission. We also have to have firm power of some sort. So they might be talking renewable natural gas, hydrogen turbines, these kind of things. Number 3, bioenergy and other zero carbon fuels and feedstocks. That's your H2, maybe some ethanol or what have you. Pillar number 4 is CO2 capture, storage, possible utilization, right? We could turn it into products, which some people have been talking about. 5, we need to reduce non-CO2 emissions. That will be a huge benefit. So like when you burn coal, you also get radon, you get mercury in the air, you get sulfur oxides, you get nitrous oxides. And also we can enhance land sinks. So we can grow more forests, we can recover forest land, and we can have more natural carbon sinks. So these are the main pillars that they have. Here's some more details here on slide 10. If you're following along on the podcast, look at that.
I like that they talk about nuclear and clean electricity, right? We just talked about that.
Yeah.
Nuclear is going to be there because it's as you said, such a powerful way to have zero carbon emission.
Yeah, they talk about 300 million personal EVs.
by 2050. So that's what we're looking at. That's where we need to get to. 150 million new residences with heat pump. This is just the US. So these are huge numbers. Really cool study. Now, this is the thing I love too. Net increase of 0.5 to 1 million jobs over the reference scenario in the 2020s. So here's a great representation of job gains by state. You can see only pretty much Louisiana is kind of a loser in the long run, but I'm sure we can come up with some mitigating measures for one of the 50 states, right? All the other states tend to do pretty well or stay even. West Virginia suffers early on, which we know because coal industry is big there, but you can see later on that they tend to do well just because of their location and their resources.
Yeah. So let's address West Virginia. This is where federal and state lawmakers should be doing something to correct this wrong in Appalachia. And I think that's already happening. So this is one of my favorite charts that you've shown because this is a great state by state approach and states can take a look and understand what clean energy means for them.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the gains later on in Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Look at New York, Delaware. I mean, so many states are in the green here on jobs. It's great to see here. Slide 11. To slide 12, also health benefits. This is great too.
Huge.
You're seeing trillions of dollars worth of air quality benefits, hundreds of thousands of avoided mortality in the US. A lot of these in California, New York, Pennsylvania, these large fossil fuel consuming states with large populations. So that's where you see a lot of the benefits, especially in Pennsylvania, Ohio, reduction of coal. Very interesting to see by states again, right? So net zero America by 2050 is possible and it's affordable, right? We just have to make sure that all of these bullet points are taken care of here on slide 13. And they give a blueprint. And this is great too. They have added capital invested versus the reference scenario in the 2020s, 2.5 trillion. This is just in the next decade. 830 billion in electricity, 430 in wind, 380 in solar. So that everybody knows. But the rest of this 350 billion in electricity transmission we're going to need to move all this variable production about. Here's hydrogen and biomass gasification. Here's industrial process efficiency. We're going to need $240 billion in investment. Here's building shell efficiency upgrades, heat pumps for residential, lighting and appliances upgrades, heat pumps. So there's a lot of opportunity here from an investment side for people looking for good investments.
And that's slide 15, I think.
Slide 15, yeah. EVs here, $190 billion. That's a nice little industry, huh?
This goes back to what we've talked about, which is efficient allocation of capital to get to where we need. This is a placemat chart that shows where it needs to go. And if you look at electricity, it's really wind and solar. Now, of course, storage is a part of that, but it just clearly shows it. Natural gas and combined cycle, only 10 billion. Biomass, only 10 billion, surprisingly.
Interesting. So I'm just going to find some other slides that I really like because we don't have time to go over all 345 of them. Slide 84, I thought this was great. Battery capacity grows on the grid, mostly after 2030 to handle intraday flexibility needs. So not only does it show the massive growth in storage that's needed, energy storage here, installed capacity in gigawatts, we're looking at over 160 gigawatts in some scenarios. The high renewable scenario needs over 180 gigawatts in the US of energy storage. And also the interesting part too is the average duration of that storage is about 7 hours. So we are going to need long duration storage by 2050 here, even what is this, 2030, maybe 2035. Large amounts of it. I'm going to skip ahead here to slide 105 is another favorite of mine. Oh yeah, this is how I found the study. Somebody posted pictures of these on Twitter. I was like, wait, when did this happen? So all of the squares in light blue here are kind of prospective areas where we could build offshore wind in the US. And in the dark blue, those are areas that the authors selected to have kind of installed in their scenario. So they selected those to fulfill the wind construction requirements. And you can see it's actually not a huge percentage. Like, look at how much of California coast would still be left undeveloped. Also Texas, Louisiana, just a small part here in Texas, in the southeast. The mid-Atlantic, however, would see huge penetration. That's where a lot of large population centers are with poor renewable resource. So they would need to leverage this a lot. Same in New York and in the Boston area, the Cape. So that's where we would see a lot of offshore development. So this was very interesting to see their selection for this. The other cool thing I wanted to look at here, slide 123, they actually go to some cases like here, this is the city of St. Louis, Missouri, 2050, and they actually do site selection for solar and wind. And so you can actually see them plotted out. Wind additional is the outlined, and wind planned is in the blue. So you can see, like they fill them in here. This is for Columbus, Ohio. And then the solar, which they projected would be installed, is in the orange. And you can see just the massive amounts of solar. Like you don't really think about like, wow, how much are we going to need, right? And this really shows you, it really makes it real, at least for me.
Fantastic. Really. I love this level of detail.
Yeah, and then one more slide here I wanted to show. Oh, this is one of the things I've been harping on for years. This is great. We will need a massive expansion in transmission capacity, and so we're gonna walk through these slides here. So this is the current transmission system in 2020, and then they'll start to add transmission lines. And even in 5 years, like look at how many transmission lines we need to add. I mean, this is just crazy. And you see it basically, they come from areas of great solar resource and no population to areas of high population. And that's basically here in Texas, you have a great wind resource, but you have a high population down in Houston. So you see those areas get developed. Same thing with Dallas here. And the same thing in the Midwest. You have all this wind resource with no population. So you see transmission lines coming out of here like veins. Just really cool. And look at the large lines. The more bright the color gets, the bigger the line is. So really interesting to see. And then by 2050, I mean, it almost looks like we have twice the transmission system we do now. It's just an amazing amount of investment that needs to go on. I could go on all day on this. If you have the time, and like Eric said, if you're looking for something to do over the next week or read, check this study out. Really cool. Environment halfcentury.princeton.edu. I think so we can get it. We'll have the link below. Just check this out. It'll answer any question you have about a renewable future, its costs and opportunities and what needs to be done.
Yeah, I think it's a great story to spend some of your vacation time on, because what a way to hit 2021. You're going to be so better informed if you have this as your kind of personal Bible online about the future of clean energy in the US. I am now a huge fan of Princeton for coming out with this study. This is the first one that addresses everything, and it does so efficiently. So awesome job on finding this. This is one of the best pieces we've had all year.
Yeah, this is crazy. I mean, I've only gotten halfway through. I'm sure there's a ton more. So yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna let you around the list of my stuff because I know we're running out of time here. Okay, so I had to look up this QuantumScape. It's been a SPAC. It was a hot stock. The stock's going crazy. I don't know, I never heard of them. What's their deal? So QuantumScape is building a better electric car battery. It's supposed to charge 80% in 15 minutes. It's a solid state lithium metal battery. So if you don't know about QuantumScape and you don't know what their technology was, this is their whole deal. So there's their development lab, which is really cool to see. So it's very exciting to see this technology get moved in and the capital flexibility and everything going on there. So very happy to see this going on.
And this is from CNBC on December 8th.
This is from my friend Laura Kolodny. Another great article. So if you've been following the Vogtle unit development, the nuclear plant down in Georgia, you've been following it for a long time. I know. I thought this project was dead at least 3 times in the last 10 years. I know cost overruns have gone 2x multiple times. I remember the first projections were like $1 billion before they got started, which everybody laughed at. And it was soon 2 billion, it was soon 4 billion. Then it was 6 billion. And then they had given up at some time. There were lawsuits, and et cetera, et cetera. But so you can imagine my shock when I read this. They received their first nuclear fuel shipment, and it's moving closer to in-service operation. This is shocking. from Grace Donnelly, a reporter at the Atlanta Business Chronicle. This again is from the Atlanta Business Chronicle, December 9th. So I'm actually elated. I never thought this would happen. Here's the final cost. It's doubled from the estimated 14 billion. They say when it was approved 10 years ago, I don't remember it being 14 billion 11 years ago, but yeah, so it's going to happen. Wow. And it's supposed to be, let's see, expects fuel load for unit 3 will happen in April. Wow. And unit 4 will be next year. Okay.
That's amazing. Like, happy for them. I hope they do a postmortem to understand where the cost overruns really took place, so that this doesn't happen again. In terms of all the constant delays, it's good for nuclear to get back in the game, no doubt about it. I know a lot of people disagree with us, but we want to get to zero carbon. This is a way to do it. Just going back to the efficient use of capital in order to get to zero carbon economy. Let's just make sure this is the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to get fixed. Well, why is this even a story? I mean, we don't have stories about natural gas turbines getting built and how amazing that is. I mean, come on, we should be building nuclear all the time. I don't understand.
Well, natural gas turbines are a lot easier to build. They're like they're big aircraft engines.
Yeah, I know.
That you put on.
All right. This is a great one from the Texas Observer here. Solar energy is hitting a growth spurt in Texas also. And so is the disinformation around it. So there's a lot of disinformation going around in Texas about the panels. So here's the kind of panels that are going in. You know, they're putting them, some of it was they're putting them in Tornado Alley, and they're worried about these things being picked up by tornadoes and becoming in projectiles and then breaking and possibly leaking, you know, some of the elements inside of it. So it turns out a lot of that is not a very founded concern. I mean, it is a concern, but it's a very small percentage chance that could happen. As long as we properly discard of these things, it's really not a concern. So there's a lot of disinformation going on. So it was really great to see Texas kind of pushing back on this and saying, you know, no, these aren't really real concerns that we have to worry about, that, you know, if you bolt the panels down and it should be fine. So really good to see.
Yeah, good here. And I think it's up to the integrateds to really have their PR machine help with the disinformation campaign to get rid of it, because they're the ones making the transition. They're the ones that have $1 million PR budgets. And I suspect a lot of the smaller, I don't want to accuse anyone, but groups that really don't have the ability to transition from oil and gas to renewables are probably turning a blind eye at the least and actively participating at the worst in this disinformation campaign. So, you know, API, American Petroleum Institute, I think they have a PR machine, and they should really help address reality from disreality.
Yeah. So this was good to see. You know, we're big fans of Texas. I know if you talk to anybody who's really from Texas, they're pro energy. They don't, you know, they don't discriminate on energy. They love energy. They're the energy capital of the world.
Right? That's right. Houston calls itself energy capital of the world. Exactly right. They don't call themselves oil and gas capital.
Correct.
I agree.
Yeah. They're the wind capital of the U.S. too. And finally, in the extra special good news column, this one from Utility Drive, GE announces first U.S. wind turbine blade recycling program. I know this has been a sticking point for people, that these blades are a terrible waste. So if we can recycle them and turn them around, this is huge. So this is the kind of sustainability that we want to see in the clean energy industry, and that we love. We don't want to see any more gallium arsenide solar panels being poorly disposed of. This is from Ilya Georgiou from December 9th. I'm sorry, I'm a little behind, but this is great to see. I just wanted to point this out to you guys. Circular economy for composite materials. We can build more wind turbines. It's great. No more pollution, no more waste in our waste streams. So we have clean energy and we have sustainable energy in the same stroke.
Love this story. I mean, again, this is addressing, I think early on in season 2, we talked about a company that's looking at recycling lithium-ion batteries, the actual lithium cells. It's great that we're going to end our season talking about someone who's finding a way to recycle the blades. And that's a great General Electric's leading the charge on that. It does take a lot of capital probably to address, you know, blade recycling. So it does take a GE or Vestas or Siemens. So let's keep doing this. This is exactly what we need to do.
Yeah. I was so happy to see this. This has been years coming. So it's really good to see.
Awesome. That's your last one, right?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think this is by far one of our best content sessions, and this happens to be our last of season 2. And so I think it's such a great way to end because we have 3 guests, good friends of ours, Joe Silver, Rob Parker, and Kathryn Valdez are going to do comments here in a second, talking about their perspective for 2021. Lucas, I was going to ask you for yours and I was going to give mine, but I think we kind of just covered it between Wood Mackenzie, the great work out of Colorado, and then now the incredible Princeton report, all the way to seeing GE recycling. I mean, I think the articles kind of speak for themselves and they represent what we feel about we're going to see in 2021.
I don't have a lot to say. I just think we have to recover from the COVID slump, which I think we're doing already. I think we've got to keep rolling on our successes. I think we have to increase the investment. I think we have to increase the awareness. Hopefully we get more help from the administration. Hopefully we get more help from FERC. These things would be great to see in 2021. I think we're going to see more investment. I think we're going to see more policy. I think we're going to see more progress. 2020 is shaping out to be the hottest year on record yet again. We saw the polar ice caps are shrinking to the smallest yet again. I mean, this problem's not going away. It's not going to disappear. We have terrible weather conditions here in the Northeast, and they're going to continue next week. So, I mean, having 60s in late December, it's just not right. So,
I don't know if you saw the news, but actually in New York, up just here in the Hudson Valley, a small ski lodge in the Hudson Valley, a little bit towards the Catskills, had an avalanche yesterday.
Avalanche, yep.
Because we had 14 inches of snow last week. They probably had more up there.
Yep.
And we had torrential rains and winds.
Rain.
Pushed it all the way through. And so, I mean, avalanches in the Hudson Valley in New York.
Yeah, 4 feet. Yeah.
If you think about 2020, we started 2020 with the Australian wildfires. And then we had a little bit of hope in pre-COVID when at the Davos World Economic Forum, they talked about ESG, transparency, and accountability. And then during COVID, we had the California wildfires, which were absolutely horrible. So, it's been a really tough year and challenging year. And we're really, we're lighting candles for those who are really suffering from the downturn in the economy. What we're talking about in clean energy is a medium to long-term solution. Obviously, the short-term solution for a lot of people is just helping to get work, to pay their rent, etc. But we have to take care of climate. There's a correlation between pandemics and not dealing with our climate issues. No doubt about that. That will be proven more and more once we get through the short-term addressing of COVID itself.
Yeah.
Everything we talk about today deals with that. And when Princeton University steps up and gives a comprehensive roadmap for America, everybody should take a look at that. And that's why we're going to post this, early in this interim week between holidays. So I hope people can spend a little bit of their holiday downtime looking at that article, looking at that Princeton presentation, looking at the Wood Mackenzie piece to talk about predictions for 21, and to map that into the greater Princeton piece about the next 30 years.
Yeah, I agree. And we saw the giant iceberg break loose from Antarctica. It's going to slam
the penguins.
Georgia.
I feel like we need getting on an airplane and going to rescue the penguins.
Yeah, we should. We should get a boat. Let's get a boat. Penguin rescue.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's bring in Joe and Rob and Kathryn for a couple comments, and we'll be back in a second after that.
Hey, Pirates. Happy holidays. I'm wearing my holiday sweater for this occasion. This is your pal, Joe Silver. So yeah, let's get to it. To answer your questions, highlight from 2020 was this series from ProPublica on climate migration by Abram Lustgarten. It really resonated with me and I think helped in a lot of the conversations I've had with family this year about climate change, because they're often looking at specific weather events or sort of apocalypse in decades from now that their children's children will experience. But this article is really about the real current effects that we're seeing and the future effects that we will see when it comes to the movement of people around the world. And anecdotally, I even have a friend who left California this year to move back to the East Coast. And, the forest fires and the ash and everything that they experienced was not the primary reason they moved, but it was definitely part of the reason. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that in the future. Something a take for 2020 or 2021. I'm not very optimistic about seeing a bold national climate policy enacted, but I do think states and cities have learned a lot in the last 4 years, and then we're going to see a lot more bold investment and policies taking place at the state and city level. One of them in New York State is called the Climate and Community Investment Act, which is sort of the next step after the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, the CLCPA. And this will actually put a price on carbon-based fuels and reinvest those dollars into local communities and things like jobs and workforce training, and also things like community solar cooperatives and things like that. So yeah, I think it's still going to be a big state and local initiative when it comes to climate policy in the U.S. in 2021 and the future, but I'm optimistic about some of that stuff. And holiday thoughts. This will be the first Christmas with my fiance that we don't visit her family due to COVID. And while that's really tough, I think a lot of people are experiencing a similar thing this year. And we're looking on the bright side and looking forward to spending our first Christmas in New York City and seeing what the city is like on Christmas Day. And we bought a big tree and are going to try and get into the spirit of things here at our home. So our home in Brooklyn. So that's it. Hopefully that answers all your questions and you have a good holiday yourself. So thanks for inviting me to do this. Take care.
Hi, I'm Rob Parker. I'm a principal at SIF Capital Advisors, an operating partner at the SCAP Clean Tech Venture Fund, and an ICERTA Entrepreneur in Residence. And I was lucky enough to be the Pirates in Clean Tech Season 1 final guest, Episode 11, Gar. So for 2020 in clean tech, in my own personal business and experience, I think it was really fortunate to, even as pandemic and lockdown really started, still able to make things happen for clients, from financing, developing business, helping them move forward in their needs. And I think broadly speaking, one of the interesting trends for the sector is that it was shown that clean tech is where a lot of smart money is going to be going, and it's going to be a challenge operating for the fossil fuel industry more broadly. And just a quick, recent news bite is the Conservative leader of Britain, Boris Johnson's announcement of a Green New Deal for electric heat pumps in Britain just not too long ago. So I think for 2021, what I'm excited about, or I think a bold prediction, is that the new Biden administration is probably going to be using the Dodd-Frank bill for implementing a number of policies that are going to drive innovation and finance of clean technologies and things that mitigate climate change in the financial sector more broadly, because of all the risks that climate change pose throughout the financial sector and throughout our economy, as we've seen in so many different ways this year, including actually zoonotic diseases like the pandemic. So I think it's going to be, it's been a rough year for everyone, but on the whole, for a lot of clean technology, climate tech, it's been an affirmation of where the economy is going, and I think an acceleration of those trends, and I think that's only going to continue in 2021. So I think I'd like to wish everyone a happy holidays. Congratulations on surviving 2020, and look forward to joining you again in 2021 with the Pirates of Clean Tech as we look about how our sustainable energy future is coming today. Gar!
Yo ho ho ho, Pirates! Kathryn Valdez here, formerly of Mapleton and Sloan Energy Advisors, and now an Energy and Environmental Policy Manager at Xcel Energy. Just want to say congratulations to you two on the successful launch of this show and podcast in 2020. I look forward to continuing to tune in 2021. Quick reflection on the year. I really enjoyed watching all of the announcements and developments in transportation electrification in 2020. And in 2021, I'm excited to see what oil and gas companies do to change and adapt, and where they are putting their capital going forward. So wishing everyone a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. Arr!
And we're back. They're great comments from good friends of ours. We've appreciated all the guests we've had. Looking forward to having greater guests in season 3, which will kick off in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we should have a great season coming up. We got to get guests again. We've had a hard time during the holiday season to get guests, so we'll get some guests for January, February. Should be a good time.
So before we wrap up, I just want to say the views and opinions expressed by Lucas and I are those of ourselves only, and not any organization we are affiliated with. Yeah. So Lucas, how can our viewers help us expand the message and get their friends listening and watching to Pirates of Clean Tech?
Yeah, so you and your friends can go to YouTube, do a search for Pirates of Clean Tech. We have a channel there. You click subscribe, and then you click the alarm bell right next to it, so it sends you a notification on your phone whenever we post our new episodes. So you're the first to know, and you have the good information before anybody else does. We're also on your favorite podcast site. We're on about a dozen podcast sites, including Apple. I think most people listen to us on Apple Podcasts. Pirates of Clean Tech. Click follow, and you'll get updates from there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you to our guests again. We hope everyone has a safe holiday season. Please stay safe with COVID. Our hats off to you all. And we're looking forward to season 3, in which we're going to take all these topics and we're going to take them to the next level. And so we can hopefully benefit you in your lives and your career. So with that, I am Eric Planey.
I'm Lucas Finko.
We are the Pirates of Clean Tech.
Oh, we are.